Hey, what's up guys? Kalamazi here, and today we're going to be taking a look at classic WoW gearing towards the end of Phase 1. Now, over the course of my classic WoW leveling adventure, I've come across countless pre-Molten Core / Onyxia Abyss lists, but none that are really highlighting the gear you should be after for Phase 2 and beyond once you begin clearing said raids. I'm going to review each gear slot, go over a few different options we have available to us, and then talk about which I think is best overall and where to acquire them. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below or stop by on Twitch where I stream 5 or so days a week and I'll be sure to get back to you. I will also place a link in the description that has each and every piece mentioned here listed with what I feel is best in slot for us in Phase 1, so let's jump right into it. Starting off with our helm slot, we have a few different options here. One of which, however, is arguably much harder to acquire than the other two, and that is Cap of the Scarlet Savant. This helm is a reward from a very long quest line that requires you to venture into Upper Blackrock Spire and Stratholme multiple times, while also gathering arcane crystals and a pristine Hide of the Beast, which can only be acquired from skinning the beast in Upper Blackrock Spire at 315 skinning level. The Nemesis Skull Cap from Onyxia is another option available to us and comes with a spell power bonus instead of a crit bonus chance. It also brings with it pretty much the same intellect and stamina values, which makes this helm a very strong option as well. If you're looking to acquire a shadow damage based helm quickly, a green Lens of Shadow Wrath from Engineering is also a solid choice, seeing as how Shadow Bolt spam is pretty much our entire rotation. This helm should grant anywhere from 34 to 36 bonus shadow damage, but comes at the cost of no baseline intellect and reduced stamina compared to the other two options. Our next slot has a few different options that are all acquired either from dungeons or Molten Core. Star of Mystaria is a solid option outside of raiding that drops from Balnazar and Stratholme. It brings with it an additional 1% chance for your spells to hit the target, which is pretty impactful both in PvP and PvE, even though they each have different hit requirements. The more spells you hit, the more damage you do. Hit gear is also a bit harder to acquire until later phases, and seeing as how suppression only affects affliction-based spells, this net gains even more value in a sense. Both Choker of Enlightenment and Choker of the Fire Lord drop in Molten Core from Lucifron and Ragnaros respectively. Out of these two options, Choker of the Fire Lord offers the most raw spell power as a bonus, while only losing a tad bit of stats, which is why I would look to acquire it over the two other options if possible. When it comes to our shoulder slot, our best options are pretty much either Fellcloth shoulders, which are crafted by tailors, or actually finding an uncommon pair with Shadow Wrath on them. The max shadow damage bonus should be around 30 or so spell power, so anything within said range should be a pretty good purchase. There are some available from dungeons with a bit more throughput, as in primary stats like stamina, intellect, or spirit, but they lack in raw spell power. Cloaks are also pretty much in the same spot as our shoulders as well. There are some options available in dungeons that you'll most likely look to acquire naturally through gearing, but our best options for the Shadow Bolt base build are going to be uncommon cloaks with Shadow Wrath on them. I will say that the Archivist cape that drops from Archivist Galford and Stratholme can indeed roll Shadow Wrath and will bring with it some MP5, but the chances of that happening are very slim. Thankfully, our robes are much more interesting than their shoulder and cloak counterparts. Robe of the Void is a crafted tailoring robe which you can acquire via the pattern from Darkmaster Gandling and Scholomance. The pattern is BOE, so technically it can also drop from the auction house for a bit of gold as well. It does require a pretty steep amount of materials that you will need to farm on your own as they are BOP like demonic runes, but it is certainly a very strong item for us overall. If you're in the market for something a bit easier to acquire and a little bit cheaper, Robe of Winter Night is also a strong option and brings with it a bit of intellect as well. This robe is also BOE and can be purchased off the auction house or crafted by a tailor with said pattern. Following suit with our cloak and shoulders, Shadow Wrath bracers are going to be our strongest option once again for our wrist slot. Max level Shadow Wrath bracers should have around 21 or so bonus shadow damage on them and typically sell for a hefty sum of gold on the auction house. You can also try to farm a pair of Flameweave cuffs from Lord Incendius and Blackrock Depths, but the drop rate on a worthwhile pair is going to be pretty abysmal. Alright, now when it comes to gloves on the other hand, pun and half intended, we have a few solid options. Gloves of Spell Mastery bring with them an additional 2% chance to crit with spells, which is pretty impactful. Hands of Power, however, bring with them a 26 spell power bonus, while Felheart Gloves are sort of in the middle with a 1% chance to crit and 9 bonus spell power bonus. Hands of Power drop from Quartermaster Ziggurat in Lower Blackrock Spire, while Gloves of Spell Mastery are crafted and require a large amount of pricing materials. Felheart gloves drop from Lucifron, however, and are not the strongest in power when compared to the other options, so I would look to acquire either Hands of Power or save for Gloves of Spell Mastery. Now there are a few different belts that you should look to acquire. Your Felheart tier belt is actually BOE and comes from Molten Core. Since it is BOE, you can also periodically find it on the auction house. However, Banthok Sash from the Blackrock Depths Arena event is another solid alternative and arguably a close upgrade in a sense. Banthok Sash brings with it 12 bonus spell power in addition to a 1% increase to your spell hit chance. As mentioned earlier, a bonus's spell hit adds a lot of value to pieces as long as you're not hit capped, and seeing as how they're pretty hard to come by in Phase 1, Banthok Sash is pretty powerful. I will say that Mana Igniting Cord, however, which can drop from multiple bosses in Molten Core, is our best belt and will last you a long while. It brings with it a whopping 25 bonus spell power and an additional 1% chance to crit with both stamina and intellect. While it does not have the actual hit rating on it like Banthok Sash does, this belt is simply too strong to skip over and will last us a good while. It is certainly worth picking up if possible. Alright, now when it comes to taking a look at our legs, our best option is Nemesis legs from Ragnaros. The 3-piece set bonus on our Nemesis set is also pretty powerful, so having these and the Nemesis helm heading into Blackwing is advisable. Outside of that, other solid options are Felheart pants from Magmadar or Skyshroud pants from High Lord Omok and Blackrock Spire, but none of them are really going to come close to Nemesis leggings. When it comes to boots, we are once again going to mostly be scouring the auction house for of Shadow Wrath boots. They should have somewhere around 29 to 30 bonus shadow damage on them if possible. Omnicast boots from Golem Lord and Blackrock Depths are a solid alternative and bring with them actual throughput main stats with a bit less bonus spell damage. Shadow Wrath boots will most likely be pretty pricey, so I would look to acquire the BRD boots if you're farming it for XP in the mid 50s. Now rings are where things start to get a bit interesting. Both Maiden, Circle, and Underworld Band are BOE rings that can be found on the auction house, barring some insane luck. Maiden Circle brings with it a spell damage increase of 18, while Underworld Band brings 14, however it only affects shadow damage spells. Maiden's also brings a bit of intellect versus stamina on Underworld Band. Neither are unique, which means you can wear two of the same ring if you desire. Stone Song of Ironforge is a quest reward from BRD that is very similar to Maiden Circle, and seeing as how you will most likely spend a good bit of time in BRD leveling up to 60, it's certainly worth picking up this quest and completing it. Looking at Molten Core, however, Ring of Spell Power can drop from multiple bosses and brings with it a massive 33 spell power bonus. It's also not unique, so two can technically be worn at the same time. It will most likely be sought after by many casters, so acquiring one, let alone two, will be a decent challenge. Now I will say the trinkets are pretty cut and dry when it comes to Phase 1 level 60. The options that we have currently mainly consist of Briarwood Reed and Eye of the Beast before we get into Molten Core. Eye of the Beast brings a 2% increase to critical strike chance, which is pretty impactful, and is a quest reward from killing General Dracasath and Blackrock Spire. Briarwood Reed, however, brings with it a flat 29 spell power increase, which drops from Jed Runeweaver and Blackrock Spire, and also holds a lot of merit. Once you venture into Molten Core, however, Talisman of Ephemeral Power becomes a strong option for casters in general. It's a strong unused trinket that lasts for 15 seconds and has a 1.5 minute cooldown. Similar to other items in Molten Core, it is also a shared loot drop between a few different bosses. When looking at weapons, you either have a main hand / offhand combo or a staff. Azersong Mageblade is our best one-hand option, which drops from Golemag and Molten Core. The Inventor's Focal Sword from Maradon is an alternative that brings crit rating with it, but is nowhere near as strong as Mageblade. Fire Rune Grimoire is a solid offhand that drops from multiple bosses in Molten Core. If you're looking for a quick offhand to acquire, however, the Umbral Crystal offhand is BOE and brings with it plus 17 shadow spell power and a few stamina to boot. You do lose out on the much larger intellect / stamina contribution that Fire Rune brings, but it is pretty simple to acquire. You can also look for an Of Shadow Wrath offhand on the auction house if you have no other options technically. Ancient Cornerstone Grimoire from Onyxia is an option technically, but has more so PvP applications when compared to spell power offhands for PvE. There will be niche times outside of PvP where it's probably useful, but as far as rating goes, I would certainly want one of the previously mentioned offhands with spell power and or stamina / intellect. I will say if you have some extra gold lying around, then Staff of Jordan is a solid BOE staff, both at level 35 where you can equip it, and all the way up to 60. While you can find certain staves in dungeons that come close spell power wise, Jordan is BoE, which does technically make it a bit easier to acquire. For those of you in Molten Core, however, Staff of Dominance brings with it increased crit chance as well as more stats and a larger spell power increase. It does also drop from Golem Egg, just like Mageblade does, which I'm sure is going to make for some pretty interesting situations at times. Having Staff of Dominance over the Mageblade / offhand combo brings you more raw intellect as well as crit rating versus the main hand / offhand combo bringing a bit more spell power at a loss of intellect / crit. In the end, both are similar to one another and it will most likely come down to whatever you can actually acquire first. Wands are sort of in a weird place as well, as they do make up a decent bit of our damage sometimes, but bring with them differing bonuses and spell power buffs as well. Skull's Ghastly Touch is a drop from Skull, a rare elite in Stratholme. It brings with it bonus shadow spell power, however also has a bit lower DPS than the Bone Creeper Stylus from Gandling and Scholomance. Then again, Stylus has less spell power but does indeed have 4 intellect on it as well. The thing is, you can certainly see a difference in actual DPS on both wands here. You can also search the auction house for Shadow Wrath wands, but in the end, there are a few different options you technically have to choose from. I will say that max level 60 Shadow Wrath wands are most likely going to be really expensive, as they're going to have high DPS on them as well as a good bit of bonus shadow damage, but I would keep an eye on the auction house regardless. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that after watching this video you have a better general idea as to what items to look for when gearing in Phase 1 raids and dungeons in prep for Phase 2. I did want to briefly touch on the pure of Shadowwrath pieces that I mentioned versus other options from dungeons or Molten Core in general. Certain pieces such as bracers, boots, and a few other slots don't really have amazing options from raids or dungeons that benefit the Shadowbolt spam build that you're most likely playing in PvE. The of Shadowwrath pieces typically offer a bonus to shadow damage, however bring with them very little throughput. The shadow pieces typically tend to be proportionally larger contributing factors when it comes to actual PvE damage, but offer less survivability and throughput without actual stamina, intellect, or spirit on them. Seeing as how life tap is a large part of PvE / raiding for us, and how both intellect and spirit also affect us as a whole, it's important to keep this in mind. The same can be said for PvP, as while being a true glass cannon is fun, I would rather live through more than one attack if they get the jump on me. Either way, we certainly have a lot of options for gearing in Phase 1, and with there being no release date yet for Phase 2, still have a good bit of time to grind a lot of these items or pray to the Molten Core / Onyxia RNG gods. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below or swing by stream anytime and I'll be sure to get back to you. I will be updating both my BFA Mythic Plus guide, Eternal Palace raid overview video, as well as releasing a Classic WoW Warlock guide in the next few weeks, so if you want to see those and more retail / Classic WoW content, be sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons as your support really helps. Thanks guys, and I'll see y'all again soon. Peace.